So I wanted to record this particular video because I think a lot of us get confused about who we really are. And so this is what I want to speak to. So when we talk about being authentic, when we talk about being the real us, I want to look at what that is. Who is the real us? What does it even mean to be authentic? And the way I understand this is I'm very interested in what is natural and what is just there before our conditioning gets involved. Because if we're looking at being the real us and the authentic us, it stands to reason that the real us comes before our conditioning. So if you think about conditioning as like programming or training, like we can all think back to our pasts, whether it's childhood or even adulthood, and we've all had certain programming and conditioning and training. And what our conditioning does is it takes us away, I think, from who we really are at our core. And so the real us, the authentic us, comes before our conditioning, it comes before our training, it comes before everything we've learned. So if we're looking at what's natural, the closest thing that I can find to natural is young kids, young children. And so if you go up to a 3-year-old and you say, who are you? Tell me about yourself. I mean, I don't know what sort of answer you'd actually get, but let's presume they might give you their name. They might say, I'm a little girl or I'm a little boy or something like that, but they're not really going to say much else. I've got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and when I ask them who they are, they don't have many ideas. And in a way, they're a blank space. Certainly when someone is born, they're a blank space. They are full of pure potential and possibility. They could grow up to be anything or anyone. Even if you're born a girl, you could grow up to be a man, apparently, these days. You can be anyone or anything you want to be. And there's an openness to that. And then we start to get these ideas about who we are. Oh, well, I'm not very good at this, but I'm good at this. And it starts to form an identity. We start to identify with these thoughts about who we are. And those thoughts about who we are never who we are. They're thoughts, they're ideas, they're decisions. And what happens is it's like we're born with pure possibility and potential, openness. And then we get an idea about who we are. And it's like we shrink. I know for me, when I was 6 or 7 years old, I remember feeling pretty open, pretty free, pretty expansive. And then something happened, an incident happened where I thought, oh, I'm stupid. And it really felt like I collapsed into this persona, into this personality of someone that is stupid. And what I later came to realize is that because of this idea, this decision I made about myself being stupid, it actually changed the course of my life because I then started making certain decisions because I thought I was stupid. And so if you'd have asked me at certain times in my life, even 6, 7 years ago, I would have said, if I was honest, yeah, I'm pretty thick, I'm pretty dumb. And I thought that would have been being authentic. But I was wrong. An idea of ourselves isn't who we are, it's an idea. The authentic you is the you before your thinking gets involved. The authentic you is the you before you started getting these ideas of who you are. So it's kind of like, to me, the authentic you is before thought. So there's pure space, potential, possibility. And then we get an idea about who we are. A lot of these ideas as well come from things that hurt, like traumas. They're not necessarily big traumas, like abuse and things, but sometimes small traumas. Like for me, being at school, thinking I was stupid wasn't a big trauma. It was what I call a little trauma with a little T, because it hurt and it was scary. And then we start to form an idea of ourselves, and we think that's the authentic us. So there's two layers to it. We've got the expanse, the openness of who we really are, the authentic us before thought. And then we develop another layer which collapses that, and it makes us feel like we're stupid, or we're not good enough, or we're a failure, or we're inadequate in some way. And so it makes sense that we would develop a set of coping mechanisms, survival strategies to cope with life, given the us that we've discovered. So if I get specific, when I thought, oh, okay, I'm stupid, and I thought that was the real me, it was like I discovered a truth about myself. That's what it felt like. And so I developed a series of strategies and coping mechanisms to get through life, given the fact that, oh, I'm stupid. So it was like, okay, well, what I'll do is I'll work harder than everyone else. What I'll do is I'll work longer hours than everyone else. What I'll do is I'll make sure that I never ask questions in front of people so they don't realize I'm stupid. When we start adapting like that, we start reinforcing the idea that the idea of ourselves, the decision of ourselves we made was real, was true. And then we literally forget that that was just an idea, and we think that that was the real us. So then we've got three levels. We've got who we really are, the expansive openness of who we are, because who we are is just a present moment being. That's who we are. Like, just because you made a decision about yourself last week or 30 years ago, doesn't mean that's who you are. It has no bearing on who you are right now in this moment. Then we have the layer of who we present ourselves to be. Oh, well, I'm not stupid, I'm clever, because of who we're trying to hide ourselves. How we're trying to hide ourselves from this perceived truth of who we are. So it's like we're scared that we're not okay. We're scared that we're not enough, and we think that's who we are. So we develop a layer on top of that, a mask, an inauthenticity, to hide who we fear we really are. But we're not that. We're this expanse. I've never met anyone whose authentic self isn't beautiful, isn't amazing. I have a couple of examples of this. One time when I was 16, I worked with a colleague who, when they started work, I thought was really ugly. That was my judgment of them. And I worked with this person for about 2 years. And I remember one time thinking how beautiful this person was. It must have been a year and a half later. I remember thinking how beautiful I thought this person was, how pretty I thought they were. And then in thinking that, I remembered, hang on a minute, I'm pretty sure this person used to be ugly. Have they changed? And I couldn't work out, had they changed appearance, or had I changed how I was creating them? Because when I first met them, I judged that I wouldn't like them. So I perceived them as ugly. And when I got to know them, they were so lovely that I started to perceive them as attractive. Everyone's authentic self is incredible. It's just we get scared that we're not beautiful. We try and hide some perceived flaw about ourselves that is never true. Another example I have of this is when I was on a mindfulness retreat once as a participant, and I think there was 12 of us, there was 12 participants, and I remember I arrived and we all sat in a circle, and I thought, right, I'm going to be friends with them. I like the look of them. I like the look of them. I don't like the look of them. They're too old. They're too fat. They're too skinny. They're too ugly. And I'd made all these judgments. about these people, about who I was going to like and who I wasn't. All ego, all ego. And it's pretty ugly. And what amazed me was at the end of this mindfulness retreat, I loved everyone because everyone by the end of this 5 days had dropped their masks and they were just their beautiful selves. Because everyone's authentic self, everyone's, no exceptions, is beautiful, is amazing. There is no person on this planet that is born evil or wrong or bad or flawed in any way. Like there's this saying that I used to come across that we're perfectly imperfect. I don't even think that's true. I don't think we are imperfect. I think we're perfect. Yeah, you might not be good at chess. Who cares? Do you want to be good at chess? You probably don't give a crap. You might have a funny shaped finger. Who cares? I'm talking about who you really are, not your appearance, not what skills you have, not what thoughts you have. At your core, you're perfect, whole, and complete. And we all are. We're all the same. There's a there's a saying that sometimes it's said at the end of like a yoga class or something, which is namaste. And I forget the poetic translation of this, but it basically translates to something along the lines of when I'm in the real place in me, the authentic place in me, and you're in the authentic place in you, we're the same. Because there's the authentic human us, but there's also the authentic spiritual us. And we really are all just the same. The only thing that separates that is an illusion of thought. So when you're talking about the real you or the authentic you, remember that the real you, the authentic you, comes before thought. If you have this idea that your name's Dave and you're religious, that's just baggage. Like if your parents hadn't have called you Dave, they'd have called you Anne, then you wouldn't be Dave, you'd be Anne. If your parents weren't religious and you were brought up with different surroundings, then you wouldn't be religious. The real you is the you that you'd be if you were born in different circumstance. Imagine that you were born to a different family, you were switched at birth. I don't want to get into the horror of that. Just imagine for a moment that you were switched at birth and you were brought up with a different family, maybe in a different country, different economic settings, different religion. There's a you that despite the different conditions, there's a you that you would still be. There is a you that you've always been, the you that is unchanging, the you that is unshakable no matter what shit is going on in the world. It's awareness, it's consciousness. It's like this experience, and then there's you, the watcher. That's who you are. And what happens is we are consciousness, we are awareness, and a thought comes in into that openness, that emptiness, that expanse. And if we identify with that thought, particularly if it has the word I in it or me, we think that's who we are. And it's like we collapse. And then when we remember, oh, that's not who I am, that's a thought, that's an idea, that's a role I play, then it feels more open and more free. And when you're in this space, there's no problems. So just remember that when you're thinking about who you are, who the real you is, and who your authentic self is. You are the watcher, the observer, consciousness. And when you identify as that, it feels great. It feels more than great. It feels like everything you ever wanted. Because if you ask someone what they want, what they tend to give you is they tell you, I want this, I want that, and they will paint a situation for you. And then if you ask that person, well, what do you think that situation would give you or allow you? They would tell you about an experience, an internal experience that they think they would get from having had that. And the internal experience is always going to be the same. It's always going to be some sense of fulfillment or content or happiness or peace. But when you realize that that's your natural self, you're less attached to creating different circumstances because you realize that's who you are. And when you realize that, you have a couple of choices. You can just bathe in the bliss of knowing who you really are, or you can go out and create some really cool shit in the world. But you can do it from feeling full up rather than feeling empty. And funny enough, when you're feeling full up of life, it's much, much easier, more effective and productive to create some amazing stuff in the world rather than coming from a place of lack or scarcity. So my invitation is to remember who you really are and to create, to manifest from that place. And it feels amazing. And you will forget at times. And your feelings will tell you when you forget because it won't feel very good. And those feelings are just a reminder to say, oh yeah, I've been forgetting who I really am. And when you remember, it's joyful and blissful. And by the way, there's no depth to how good it can feel. When people talk about enlightenment or nirvana, it is an all-encompassing, beautiful feeling of realizing that you are life itself. And it is the best drug you will ever find. And that's who you are.